Hello YouTube, Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today's topic is what do we do about finicky eaters? Every now and then we'll get a fish that simply will not eat, and the reason for that can be several, but I'm going to concentrate on the fish that you just purchased, not the fish that was eating fine and suddenly stopped eating. Instead, I'm going to talk to you about a fish that you just acquired. You brought him home from the local fish store, or you just received him in a shipment. You've put him in quarantine, ideally, and you notice that he is not accepting the food. So I have a few tips for you. First, you should contact the seller and ask that person what that fish was being fed. What was the seller feeding that fish? Flakes, pellets, what kind of pellets, what kind of flakes? If you can match the food that the seller was using and that the fish was accepting from the seller, you're off to a good start with that fish. If you don't have that food readily available though, you're going to have to get a little bit creative. In my case, I had the eye biter that I received from James Largo over at the Cichlid Shack. That's the Cichlid Shack over in Arizona. And he was not accepting food. He was spitting out pellets. He wasn't interested in the flakes. And so I had to get a bit creative, and I went over to PetSmart and picked up some omega-1 frozen cichlid cubes. And he went crazy over them. He loved them. And he would gobble them up and started to get fatter and healthier and more interested in food. And only after a fish is looking very strong and eating very, very well would I ever consider transferring a quarantine fish, a new fish, over to the main tank. So after he'd been doing that for a few weeks, I brought him over to the main tank. Just recently, as a matter of fact, right before filming this video, he started accepting some of the Northfin pellets. But my advice for you is if you get a fish like that you've received and he's not eating, first find out from the seller what kind of food they were using and try and match that. If you can't, have a variety of food on hand so you can try different things. As I mentioned earlier, I have Zoom Ed spirulina flakes. I have regular cichlid flakes. I have Northfin krill gold. I have frozen krill. I have Northfin cichlid pellets, and I also have cobalt probiotic food on hand. And in my case, it was the omega-1 cubes that got that fish going. Now, as I mentioned right before the filming of this video, actually, that fish, that eye biter, started accepting the Northfin pellets for the first time without spitting them out. So that fish has made the transition now to the kind of food that I like to use on a routine basis. I do mix up food. I like to give my fish a variety of food because some foods are strong in one area and maybe weak in another. That way I can kind of even things out, shore things up with using a variety of food. So tip number one, check with the seller. What were they using? What were they feeding the fish before sending the fish to you or before selling you the fish in the case of a local fish store? Tip number two, have a variety of foods available so that you can mix it up. And tip number three is have something that contains garlic. And if in the case of the omega-1 cubes, I think it's the garlic ingredient in there that actually got the eye biter going. If you can't, if you don't have food that has garlic or access to food like that, you can buy products like Focus or Garlic Guard, things like this. These are products that contain garlic that you can soak food in, and that'll make the food more appealing to the fish and make it more likely that they'll eat them, eat those particular foods. Now, keep in mind, if after about a week of trying some of these tips, your fish is still not eating, you may actually have a fish that has a parasite, some type of a disease. Throughout this process with my eye biter, the eye biter continued to look very, very good. His fins were not collapsed. His fins were spread out. He had good color. He was active. He just didn't like the food I was feeding. If in the middle of all this he was showing signs of disease, or his fins were collapsed, or he was hanging out in a corner, or I would have started a regimen of something like maybe General Cure, maybe Metro, some type of a medication that would have gone after something like a parasite that he might have had in his gut that was keeping him not interested in food. Okay, so have medication available as a final option. All right. So those are my tips for your finicky eaters that you just received. I hope that helps. You'll notice I'm wearing one of our T-shirts. I'm going to be those will be available pretty soon. I'll have those as a Teespring below the video in the future. So watch for that, and come visit us over on Facebook at ben.o.cichlid, and follow on Instagram at ben.o.cichlid. I appreciate you showing up. You are very appreciated, taking the time to watch my videos and helping my channel grow. And please comment and rate if you've had any success in getting finicky fish to eat. Comment below. The community would love to hear your ideas as well. Okay? Thank you so much, and that's it for me.